Forbidden love, a daring quest. Dark magic. Skirnir's journey has everything. His tale can be found in the Poetic Edda in a poem called Skirnismal. So you don't have to read it, let me tell you about Skirnir's quest and just how important his story is to Norse mythology. The myth begins with the god Frier sitting in Odin's high seat. Frier is the god of fertility, prosperity, and good weather. He's gazing into all the different worlds when someone catches his eye. Frier spots Gerder, a beautiful giantess, and instantly falls deeply in love with her. But there's one big problem. Love between a god and a giantess is forbidden. Seeing that Frier is sad, his father Gerder sends Frier's servant to him. Frier tells his servant Skirnir all about his love for Gerder and asks him to go to Jotunheimr, the land of the giants, in order to woo Gerder on his behalf. For the journey ahead, Frier gives him his horse, which can travel through the fiery barrier surrounding Jotunheimr, as well as Frier's magical sword, which can fight on its own. The journey is a daunting one. Jotunheimr is a place typically hostile towards the Aesir gods, and it sets up a supernatural adventure that's common in Norse myths. As Skirnir reaches Jotunheimr, he finds Gerder and presents his case. He starts off by offering her gifts to persuade her to love Frier. Gifts like 11 golden apples, which are symbols of eternal youth in Norse mythology, and a magical ring that multiplies itself. Both gifts carry deep magical and cultural significance. But Gerder isn't impressed. She rejects the proposal, so Skirnir resorts to a different approach: threats. He threatens her with curses if she continues to refuse Frier. One curse is that she'd be destined to a life of misery and loneliness, hated by all the gods. It's common in Norse myths to use magic and threats to achieve your goal, which just shows the complex themes of morality in such stories. Finally, Gerder gives in and agrees to meet Frier. Skirnir returns to Frier with the good news and also notifies him of the 9-day waiting period before Gerder will finally meet him. At first glance, Skirnir's mission was successful, but by what means does he get there? His mission was one of diplomacy and magic, but also coercion. The story also touches on themes of love, desire power, and the consequences of your actions. Now that you have the general outline of the myth, let's break it down a little deeper. Remember the journey just to get to Jotunheimr? Skirnir's journey there isn't just a long physical trip from one realm to another. It's a journey into the unknown and a crossing of boundaries. The flames around Jotunheimr come up constantly in Norse mythology and represent the divide between the world of the Aesir gods and the world of the giants. It's a metaphysical separation between different orders of beings and worlds. Skirnir's horse carrying him right through the fire is an important moment of transition and shows just how important his mission is. Jotunheimr itself is often depicted as a place of wild nature and untamed landscapes, which contrasts with the more civilized realms of the gods. Rules and the order of the gods' world don't apply in Jotunheimr, adding an element of danger and unpredictability to the mission. And even though the text doesn't talk too much about it, the journey through Jotunheimr would be full of challenges at every turn, since giants were often hostile to the gods, and Skirnir would have to summon his courage, and maybe even his wit, to travel through the land safely. If you zoom out for a second, Skirnir's journey can be seen as a diplomatic mission that requires both bravery and tact. He isn't just a messenger, but a negotiator too, responsible for persuading Gerder to accept Frier. Add in the courage, skill, and determination needed to travel through Jotunheimr. In Skirnismal, the journey to Jotunheimr is a mix of adventure and magic and questions how far characters will go to achieve their desires. Now, when Skirnir's initial gifts don't work and Gerder still refuses, Skirnir starts to threaten her. Using his magical staff to inscribe runes and cast a series of curses on her, he threatens her with a difficult fate, isolation, and the wrath of the gods if she refuses. Skirnir was diplomatic at first, but he then resorts to a darker approach. This is where the story gets complex and is no longer just about a man trying to woo a woman. This is actually a common theme in Norse mythology, where persuasion and force often go hand in hand. One of the specific threats was to send Gerder to the realm of the dead, where she'd be tormented by the spirits of the damned. He also threatened to take away her sanity and peace of mind, making sure her life was miserable and unbearable. And if you look closely, Skirnir's threats aren't just personal. They also threaten to strip Gerder of her place in the world and make her an outcast not just among her own people, but also in the eyes of the gods. She agrees to meet Frier, and it goes along with the theme of how effective magic is in Norse mythology. With Skirnir using forceful and cruel methods to get what he wants, it does raise questions of consent and goes into a moral grey area of how far you can go to achieve what you want. The story does present his actions as positive though, so it leaves room for interpretation on the use of power and coercion. The fact that threats and magic were used shows the Norse people believed words and symbols can have a huge impact on your fate. This is arguably the most important part of the story because it demonstrates the multifaceted nature of Norse mythology. It's not all black and white, and this part of the story brings up strong questions of ethical boundaries. Now, at the end of the journey, when Gerder is finally persuaded to meet Frier, she agrees to meet in a secluded woodland named Barri 9 days later. Meanwhile, Skirnir goes back to Frier to tell him the good news. Frier, who's anxious and lovesick, is sad that even a short wait feels never-ending when you're waiting for love. The story ends and is significant in Norse mythology for several reasons. It illustrates the theme of love breaking barriers and crossing boundaries, as the love between a god and a giantess created tension between personal desire and societal norms. It also shows the power of magic and threats in the Norse world, and the passionate, though sometimes irrational, nature of the gods. And of course, it brings up questions of moral and ethical boundaries, making the story of Skirnir's journey an important and essential part of Norse mythology. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and consider subscribing for more mythology-related content from around the world.